I don't know if that's a good skill or not, is it?
The clients saw it, they were like, oh wow, that's nice. And then it was never used again.
I've made that mistake. I used to sketch a lot. I used to have so much paper. And my laptop bag still has like a thick wad of paper of all these Devomech sketches.
Yeah, people should keep sketching, but I don't think people should sketch like the rendered aesthetic, put it on a website type sketches.
Yeah. If you were a product, what product would you be?
A hammer.
Yeah, because
very much a hammer.
I have all this fresh details in my head from uni that I have to do this and this and this and this, and you're just like, let's do this. I'm like, what? What do you think would be good advice to give for designers that are coming into the corporate world? Assalamu alaikum. So today I'm here. I'm Maha Tariq. I'm the industrial designer at Devomech Solutions and my team lead.
Hello, I'm Firas. I'm the team lead for the industrial design team at Devomech.
And today we're just going to talk a little bit about what we do over here at this company and have some a little bit of a fun chit chat. Firas, what is your background in what did you study and what brought you here?
My primary background is that I have a bachelor's in product and industrial design in London from a university called Central St. Martin's. And after that, I did about a year in manufacturing design, working in design studios that did various things. Like one maybe did laser cutting, another did 3D printing. And that was my primary background. Before that, I did the wonderful A-levels that we all do and panic about.
So you said you did your a year of manufacturing studies?
I did, work.
Actual
jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And it was mainly working in sort of bespoke production, and I helped in designing manufacturing.
So you helped in designing the manufacturing?
No, in designing and manufacturing.
Okay.
So some products people will obviously, you can't make them because they make no sense.
Yeah.
So you have to fix them, and that's where the designing part. Otherwise, it would be mainly manufacturing, in which case that would be more of a technician type of role.
Mm-hmm.
Entry-level work, basically.
And how was your degree study? What was it fun? Did you enjoy learning this?
Degree was definitely a unique experience because we weren't really taught in a specialist way. So most degrees they would try and teach you how to be specialized. Mm-hmm. Our degree was more so we'll throw everything at you, and whatever sticks to you, you can turn that into a career.
That was the same with me. I studied industrial design in NUST, here in Islamabad. And over there, we were just given, I feel like it wasn't even a proper structured degree yet when I started. And in my final year, when I'm leaving, all the freshmen and everything, they're having the most structured syllabus, and it's amazing. I was so jealous. And but yeah, basically, I guess you and I had the same
guinea pig years.
Yeah.
My uni also went through that, where they were basically doing a cull because they used to have 180 students per department, which is too many. So they culled it down to around 80.
Oh my
God.
God.
I still managed to get in somehow.
Oh, nice.
That was, but nothing was structured.
Yeah.
Everything was sort of like, well, we'll just dump them in the deep end of the pool and hope they don't drown.
Yeah, and for us, they taught us packaging design, UI, UX design, and a bunch, mainly we focused on product design. But then when it came to filling our credits, we were given business studies, and design management was basically business studies, but with the word design in it. It was just a lot of, it was a whole umbrella of things. And now how does it feel coming into the corporate world after that though?
Convenient. I don't need to lift heavy sheets anymore.
You don't need to what?
Lift heavy sheets of material anymore.
Oh yeah, that's good. That's true.
We used to do that in uni as well because you were expected to buy and make your own materials.
Yeah, but it was expensive.
Just make sure you didn't kill yourself on the machine.
Yeah.
But we would be expected to buy and maintain because they wanted to get you into material costs very quickly. That's the main thing with most designers is that they'll make something and then someone has to suffer figuring out how to make it.
Yeah.
That's my primary role in this job, is to make the engineers suffer here.
Yeah, exactly. So like when I started here at Devomech, I also learned that I just had to do the designing part and the rest was for the mechanical team to figure out. And I was kind of like a load off me, but at the same time, it made me feel like I didn't have much control. Like I wanted to do a bit more like specifics and figure out myself as well how the things are going to work, because that's what I did in my bachelor's degree. But it is a kind of better way to spend your time here.
I'd say it'd be more accurate to say it's a more cost-efficient way of spending time, because the more you progress in a project, the harder it becomes to finalize details. So it would sort of be like a graph where you'd have the time spent slowly increasing, and then when you reach the end, the last 10%, it would sort of go like that.
That's true.
So you'd want people to do the first 70% where the line is relatively stable, and then switch to a more expertise team, like the mechanical team. So we would do the 70%, which is reasonable, and then for the last 10%, we'd give it to mechanical so that they can do it much better than we could.
That's true.
Without also, costing an arm and a leg.
Yeah, you're right. Having another team help in that area is definitely a...
And how was your experience adapting from uni to corporate?
Yeah, it was good. Like I said, it took a load off that area. But one thing I will say is that during uni, we were figuring out so much of those things and the technicalities and everything, that it would take so long to complete one project. We would have 3 to 4 weeks on a small project, an entire semester on a big project. So coming over here, when you need, you taught me that you just have to give the client designs right away, whatever you can. And it was really confusing for me at first. I was like, what do you mean? What about all the technicalities? And I don't know, maybe do the ideation, research phase, ideation phase, then 3D model phase, rendering phase. But you just have to do it quickly and give the client what they want.
It is professionally, design is a lot more brute force than unis let on. Because in a uni, you're being trained to do everything, so that if you want to get a job later on, if you want to get into manufacturing, then you have a basic understanding. If you want to get into the business, you have a basic understanding. If you want to get into the different parts, then you at least dip your toes in each part. But over here, it's client wants thing done, so you have to get it done as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And they're paying money for this, so
yeah.
Not a lot of people are willing to spend a month's worth of money to develop simple products, even complex ones.
That also helped me think of ideas quicker, because before I would just get stuck because I'm always thinking about the final end product. And I'm like, okay, it has to have this and this and this, and this is how it should work. But when you have to give a client something so quickly, you just start like sketching. And for you, I've noticed you just start 3D modeling. You don't even start the sketching phase. And that's what I was like, that's what I learned from you as well. Just straight up open Rhino and just start making whatever shapes. And that was really helpful.
Because most products are simple shapes made into different things. Like you can look at a phone. This is a square with rounded edges.
Yeah.
That's all. This is a multi-million-dollar design.
Yeah.
So you don't really need to do all these fashionable, massive, different things. Clients, also because the design style we have, it's not like we're doing Art Nouveau and like Renaissance era.
Yeah.
So we can afford to do simple shapes. So that's why you can do scattershot.
That's true.
It's just fast, quick, but usually that's a good thing in the sense that the client has options. And then the client will just pick these, and then you develop those shapes into more details. You start adding things like the buttons on the edge, that little bevel that happens when the screen goes on the edge.
Yeah.
Simple things like that.
So we're like basically living in minimalism era and stuff. Do you like this era?
Well, there's two forms of minimalism, because ultimately minimalism is the idea of not overloading someone with information. And you do that in two ways. You either do that by removing detail, or by adding so much detail, it basically becomes a background. Like, for example, this table is blank white with a minimal design, so it's very minimalist versus like this background. It's fair if you go geometrically, it's very compact, but because it's so all the way, it becomes a blank background.
Yeah.
So you can either overload with detail or overload by removing detail. So those are the two types. I am a proponent for the overloading.
Okay, you like this kind of thing.
Yeah. Texture rather than just flat and
That's
color.
true. Flat it just gets a little boring, I guess, but that's what sells these days.
I mean, also that, but you have to remember that flat also makes things more convenient. Because let's say I see things blurry. People who have difficulty with vision and they see blurry, they don't really recognize textures all that much.
Yep.
But if a white sheet with a blue circle on it, they'll definitely recognize that.
Yeah.
That's why a good way of finding out what's the most visible is looking at like road signs, medical signs.
Contrast is high, solid colors.
Very
flat.
So yeah, minimal is sort of like it's less imaginative, less fantastical, but it becomes infinitely more practical.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, people also get bored. So and people like having things to look at. That's why during, let's say, the Soviet era, in Soviet Russia, when everything was in industry, block, squared apartments, everything was very bland. In order to offset people's want for like that artistic flair, have you ever seen Russian train stations?
No.
They are beyond ornate.
Oh wait, the Soviet one, bus stops type?
Yeah, they're beyond ornate. Murals everywhere.
Yeah.
Textures, paintings, colors, glass, everything. Complete overload. And so you have to strike a balance between, it has to be practical. No, that does not mean you make it boring.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like a lot of products these days, actually designed in almost everything, it has lost so much personality. Like there's so much potential for adding personality to a product. But what sells these days is like the fact that it's just practical, straight to the point.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mix for me because you'd remove personality, but you also have to think products don't exist on their own. Like I'm not going to be having this rotate 360 degrees when I'm using it. No, it'll sit on my desk. And I'd like to have a case that sort of matches the furniture, for example. Like I took a very bland blue case because I didn't want it to stick out too much. So like, for example, like if you have like Amazon products, they're usually just grayish, brownish with like a very desaturated colors. And it removes personality, but then it doesn't destroy the contrast of a person's living room, for example.
Yeah.
Like if I have nice modern sofas and then a bright red Amazon Echo, there's going to be a bit of a problem. People's personality now is more the sum of the designs they have, which is it's more expensive and it means you buy more things.
Yeah, that's true.
Everyone gets what they want except the person who wants to save money.
Yeah, that's true. So when working with clients right now in this company, do you feel like you want to design this a different way, but you're just designing it like the way you think the client would, like anyone would want it?
I feel like doing both ends is fine. So normally I would just do the simple like rule of three, make 3 designs. One, which is exactly how they described it. The second, which is in the spirit of how they described it. And the third is me throwing a rock at a wall and seeing what happens. So like out there to the letter and something more in the spirit of what they want. So those 3, usually a person will like mix and match from those 3. Like what would you do?
I think like I feel so you've seen how I sketch out so many designs and then I eventually like to ask you which 3 would go well and then I would design those. Out of those, I usually the one that I do like or like I feel like has a bit more, it's a bit different, unique. That's usually never chosen by the client, you know? And I feel like maybe if products were designed a bit uniquely, it'd be cool. But then again, I get it. Whatever the client wants, that's what we do here, whatever the client wants.
Because we also have to consider the fact that they're the ones who are
paying
spending money to make it and getting out their designs is difficult to manufacture.
Yep.
So that's it. Also, you have to sort of gauge how sure the client is themselves. So the clients vary, like, I want this, I want it square, I want it boxed, I want red, white, blue, and I want it to scream America every time I open it. then you kind of have to do what they want, and then maybe you can experiment a bit with like detail in that regard. But if the client's very iffy, he's like, oh, I want a box.
Then you don't even know what to do. Like, yeah, like for example, that water client, the water hub client, he didn't know what he wanted, and we were just like going back and forth.
In that case, it would be a mix of sort of, they have an idea, but they're not sure of it. So that's what they defer to the experts.
Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm.
So then we gave them a collection of designs, and they picked the ones they liked.
Did they actually pick?
They did pick a couple, but then you had the added problem of when it went into manufacturing, a bunch of things had to be changed.
What is your favorite project that you've worked on right now in this company?
I don't really have a favorite project, more like a favorite type of project. Sort of the ones that don't require me to have to consider every detail. Just like make like, I don't know, they want a box for a very specific type of box with certain elements, and then you're like, oh great. Then you just make 50 boxes.
No, you like that kind of design.
Sometimes it's just nice to not have to think about everything.
That's true, yeah. And you get to experiment a lot in that.
Yeah, in that regard, making a flat surface interesting is probably the hardest thing to design.
Yeah, that's true. And what about, like, you use primarily SolidWorks, right?
I was trained in SolidWorks, yeah.
Yeah. I have not learned SolidWorks before, and I've learned on Rhino 3D. Do you think like SolidWorks is better and it should be used more?
The difference between the two modeling types is mainly purpose-built. Like I do parametric modeling, which is it's in the name. It's modeling that follows very strict parameters. Mm-hmm. And Rhino is sort of a mix between parametric and surface modeling. So surface modeling is great if you want to make an organic thing, like a hand. Like if I tried to make a hand with parametric modeling, I would rather just shove my hand into the computer screen and model it. But if I had to make it in surface modeling, then it's a doable thing.
Yeah, that's true.
But because parametric is all about the parameters you get the machine to do it with, so I always preferred the method of SolidWorks, which was like make a block, cut it down to shape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So generally, when you get a client's brief, how do you complete that project from start to finish?
I mean, obviously you do the beginning, which would be like market research or like referencing. The client would usually send a reference. Like, oh, I really like XYZ product and I really want it to be inspired by Z product. Mm-hmm. Then you just go through it, look at the websites, look through how people interact with them, do basic sort of market research, and then you do research into sort of how people use it. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of things like you could find, for example, if you go online to like shopping websites, they'd have a product inspired. Like one good way is to look at the reviews.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like a lot of, say, for example, plastic products that people hold, people design it, but then you look in the reviews and it'd be like, I really dislike this product because the mold line goes right across my palm and it's cut my palm multiple times. Like things like that you'd never encounter normally unless you go through into that. Especially for like the design phase, that's the kind of thing that would come at the very end.
It is really important to like understand users' like pain points and issues as well, right? So, but we don't get to do a lot of that in person. We just have to do it online, right?
Yeah, mainly online. Because we don't really have the time frame for those. I imagine bigger projects with bigger companies would have more of a market research span.
Yeah.
But in that case, I imagine half the time they would just hire an external company to do market research and then give us the research, and then we would still have to do everything with things we're giving. Yeah,
that's true. So once you've done your research, you start designing and you go straight on SolidWorks, right?
I mean, it depends on how much you would need to think through the function of a product. If the function's fairly simple, then I could do everything in my head and I don't really need to sketch, and then I could just 3D model. If it's annoying, then I might like make 2 sketches, a couple of sketches. I sort of stop needing to do sketches after a while.
Yeah, I feel like that's like I don't know if that's a good skill or not, is it?
It's a time-saving and cost-saving skill.
Yeah.
Because I can do good sketches and people like good sketches, but people didn't pay for a good sketch, they paid for a good model. So the amount of times I've made a sketch and it's sort of like the client saw it, they were like, oh wow, that's nice, and then it was never used again. Mm-hmm. The time to usability ratio is not exactly ideal.
I've made that mistake.
Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes it's better for all parties to just 3D model and render.
Yeah, and honestly, like clients really understand what the product's going to look like when they see an actual 3D model and it's rendering.
Yeah, you could say I sketch in 3D.
Yeah.
I don't really need to do this 2D sketching anymore, but that's sort of a skill you have to do the hard way, which is do a billion different things.
Yeah.
And then you can sketch it out in your head.
I feel like I've kind of started doing that as well.
You used to sketch a lot.
I used to sketch a lot. I used to have so much paper. And my laptop bag still has like a thick wad of paper of all these Devomech sketches. And now I've just started going straight to 3D modeling because I was like, okay, Faraz does it this way. Let me try. And it is a time saver. It's really cool as well. And it kind of feels like I've leveled up in my skills, but I still think like sketching is really important, and I think people should still keep that up.
People should keep sketching, but I don't think people should sketch like the rendered aesthetic, put it on a website type sketches. Yeah, it's okay. You can use a stick man to do it. You don't need to draw his entire hand, palm, and fingers.
Okay. The reason I think sketching is also kind of fun to me, because I'm also an artist and I like sketch and I paint and I draw and all of that. So when I'm sketching a product taught the way that you'd design, like sketch product design, it's really relaxing. It's really fun, and then you also kind of get more ideas through that. Which when I'm 3D modeling, I do get ideas, but it's like in a different sense, But yeah. It is a time saver, and that's basically what you have to do at Devomech.
As long as the client's happy by the end, then.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not a bad thing. Yeah, it's cool.
Having both skills is good.
Yeah. Did you ever get like a really strange feedback from a client?
I've gotten useless feedback from a client.
Yeah, we get useless feedback all the time.
And clients, they'd be well-intentioned. They'd be like, oh, and they'd describe it in a way that they understand. Yeah. But the wording would leave very zero comprehensibility to what it is they actually want.
Yeah, that's true.
Like maybe they try and describe it using a movie reference or something, and then I would have to now go through a film, find the exact thing they're talking about to vaguely understand what they want, and then maybe I can do it.
Yeah.
It's sometimes like that, but usually I see most clients usually they see something or they're either like no or they're yes. That's usually the reaction.
Yeah, that's true. You kind of have to give them like multiple options and see what they're leaning more towards. Speaking of like one of the favorite projects we've done here, I think, I don't know if you know this, but remember the camel collar device? They're actually like already, testing it on the camels. And that's so cool. That was my favorite part of what we studied in our bachelor's degree, like field testing, user testing. And when they were testing the collars on the camels and figuring out how it's working and stuff, that excited me so much. And that's actually like, how do I get to do that here? Like, I'm here sitting designing, and they're like the electronics team is going and doing the field research.
Yeah, most field research is usually automated. You just sort of set it up and see how long it takes for it to break.
Yeah.
But I guess in the many cases, because like when I came here, they were designing an automatic dog shower vest, and so my dogs got the unique punishment of being
Your dogs were used for the testing?
Yeah, my dogs are very chill.
Okay.
So yeah, they got the joys of having a jacket put on them and then just having water sprayed through pipes on them. So like, yeah, there's fun moments for field testing, but each field test was like 4 hours.
Yeah, it must be, yeah.
And it was 4 hours of driving, going there, putting the vest on the dog, getting the dog to not, get mad, and then just, that's it.
Oh, well, did the product work?
Yes.
A funny question. If you were a product, what product would you be?
A hammer.
Yeah, because...
Very much a hammer. Blunt, and I brute force all my issues.
Mm-hmm.
Very few things a hammer can't solve.
And you thought about that so quick.
I mean, it's simple. Everyone wants to think of like the most fancy, complex thing, and at the end of the day, I would rather just do the simplest thing, do it the most, and that's just a hammer.
Mm-hmm.
Just do one thing really, really well.
What is one thing you do really, really well?
Drain my bank account.
I still don't know what product I would be if I was a product. So I can't answer that. But what do you think I would be?
There's too many options right now.
Okay. Was it also, I think I don't really know myself well enough to ever, like people say, oh, what flavor of a donut would you be? Or what kind of dog would you be?
There's a simpler question than that, is what flavor of a donut wouldn't you be?
Yeah, that's a good answer. Oh, actually, I can think of that. I would not be a chocolate donut.
Yeah, I wouldn't be a lemon donut.
What product do I not like? Anyway, well, do you have a product you don't like?
No.
Yeah.
Everything works until it doesn't.
Mm.
How nervous were you when you started?
When we started, I was like really intimidated by you. I don't know why. I also thought you were like the boss at first because I met you first and I was like, oh, okay, I guess this guy's the CEO. And then when we were working, it was like, I guess you're more of a quiet observer and also like, okay, just do this, do that, that's it. And I was like, whoa, what am I supposed to do? Like, I have all this like fresh details in my head from uni that I have to do this and this and this and this. And you're just like, just do this. I was like, what? Like, it was really confusing. And a lot has changed in this 1 year that I've been learning by your side. And it's been really cool. Now I'm like much more chill. I'm not nervous anymore. Honestly, like, I don't know if this is like okay to say, but corporate stuff is not scary once you like get into it. It's just, when I was coming into this company, I had no idea what to expect and what to do. What do you think would be good advice to give for designers that are coming into the corporate world?
It's okay to start slow. You don't need to start at 200%. You burn out real fast if you do that. So it's okay to be like, take it easy, not like if I tell you to make a couple of sketches, like I say make a couple of sketches, there's no need to come back with like 15 pages of sketches, for example. Like simple things, like it's okay to, don't take it too slow. Like there's within reason, but there's no need to like working overdrive in your head to get things. It's okay to learn. It's okay to start slow.
I think in uni, I used to get like so overwhelmed with the amount of detail that I would have to think about for the final product, and that overwhelming feeling would make me not work at all or something. And that happened a couple of times in this job as well. But it turns out at this job, it's pretty simple. You just start with the first step and that's what you show to the client. That's it. It's just pretty like, it's like you just start, show, then do the next step, show, do the next step, show.
It's very much staircase.
Yeah.
I take one step at a time.
Exactly.
I don't jump off a railing and go to the bottom.
Exactly. And that's why, so yeah, like if you're coming into the corporate world and stuff after design school, it's much more chill, right? Well, thank you so much for joining, and I hope you guys learned something. Have a good day.